So you were just out west. What were you working on it there?
I was dancing in a new Nickelodeon movie that's gonna come out in like probably a few months, I think. I'm not sure when exactly. But it's called the J Team. I think I'm allowed to say that now. I think so.
Wait,
Other people are, so
this is breaking news, you guys.
today, right now. Yeah, so I was out there for like 6 weeks and dancing more than I have in a year. So
How was that? How was that kind of reintroduction?
honestly, it's so funny that like we're talking about mindfulness practices and things because that was a real test. I think like when I grew up dancing, I've been dancing since I was 3, and I've just like never known a life without it. And during the pandemic, just like not doing anything and like really allowing myself to rest and be like, it's fine if I'm not, training constantly. It's okay. We're just gonna like allow ourselves to chill, and
Ooh.
we need to just like do whatever it is that I can handle minute to minute. And then like being thrown into like full throttle, like we learned 5 dances in a day and a half.
Uh,
And then, and then went really hard and cleaned it like minutely for 2 weeks.
oh my
And
gosh.
shooting it, like my body was just like not.
It was not ready. It was
No,
not
I was
ready.
like, I'm not 17 anymore. Like, I can't just like, pick it up and go. Like and also my brain too. I was like, oh, I have, a lot more understanding of like my anxiety, and I have a lot more like imposter syndrome and feeling like I had a lot of self-doubt and was just like constantly getting in my own way and being like, I don't deserve to be here. Like everybody is looking at me and being like, what the heck is she doing here? Like, how did she get this job? Like all of it, especially because a lot of the other dancers were like 17 to 20. And then there were 4 of us that were like 24 and 26. And it just like felt very like different and scary, and me being like, oh my gosh, like I am not in, like this is not the way that I normally am. And when I'm like, working a lot and dancing a lot and taking classes and like my brain even just like learning choreo and like really fast and remembering it and having it just like getting into your body and all of that stuff, like I was dealing with a lot of just like pure panic and being like, I shouldn't be here. And thinking that everyone was like staring at me and being like, wow, she's so bad, I can't believe she's not here, or I can't believe she is here. And I don't know, after like a week, I was like, I really am getting in my own way, and I'm spending the time that I could be, asking questions and really focusing on the choreography. I'm taking the time that I could be doing that with, and I'm replacing it with panicking and like kind of shooting myself in the foot a little bit and being like, I am so busy worried about what I look like that I just like can't even focus on learning any of this. And I need all my focus right now. I need all of it to be on dancing, and remembering that like dance is something that I love to do, and that I felt so lucky to be there, and consistently like robbing myself of that joy and excitement because of, fear and anxiety and self-doubt and being like, I don't deserve this, all of that stuff. So I was, after, quite some time of not being very kind to myself, I was like, okay, what are my tools? I reached out to my friends because, the people, it's so easy for people outside of you who love you to be like, hey, this isn't true. And I think community care is like so important.
Yes.
Because you can't do it on your own all the time. You just can't. Yeah. And for a long time, I thought I could. I was like, I don't need anyone. It's fine. I can be here to like help you.
Girl.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are like that. You're like, I can take care of other people, but they don't have to take care of me, because that would be too much.
Yeah, no. I
A
got
burden. And also, like, if you're a perfectionist, which I also think a lot of like dancers and creative types are, you're like, I'm always perfect. I always have to come off as perfect, and that means nothing is ever wrong. And
Drop a comment if you're relating to this. Oh my gosh, I feel like you're in such good company with
yeah,
all of this.
it's such a huge lie that we've been told, that we have to like appear together all the time, um, especially with like, concepts of like professionalism. You're like, what does it mean to be professional? Like, not human? Because a lot of the time, the things that we are, eliminating from our personalities in professional settings is like the parts that make us like superhuman and relatable, and being like, yeah, sometimes you roll up to rehearsal and like you're gonna make a mistake, or like just haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah.
And you need to ask a lot of questions because you're not perfect. And even like emotionally as well, like sometimes you're like just sad.
I love that we're talking because you are in this business. You are a working performer and like a community leader. Like we could talk about so much. We could talk the whole show really about everything that you do. But I love talking about it because it's in real time. It's applicable to what we do and what you're saying, like that imposter syndrome being on set, especially after how long. And I'm sure that you are in very good company, but because we don't talk about that kind of stuff, because we need to be the most on and at our best, when really, like, imagine if you were like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit this or that way. Can you imagine a conversation that would probably erupt? You mentioned reaching out, which is a huge one. And we love that for all the community here. What are some other tools in your sort of survival bag that you find helpful?
That's a good question. I think like learning how to meditate. Like, I love guided meditations. They always give me something, even if I'm like, am I doing this right? Because I feel like you just never know, right? And you're like, am I supposed and then you think about some other stuff, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm meditating.
The mountain's gone. The mountain is gone. I'm in the grocery store.
But even if it's just like, remembering to like take a deep breath is like super, it just like changes everything. I think when I think about because I have anxiety, I'm like, I'm holding my breath like all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Like literally.
And my shoulders live up here.
Earrings.
And I'm like, that all of my ballet teachers ever are like, Sierra, your shoulders are earrings, like put them down. And I'm like, okay. So then I've moved it to like the center of my back between my shoulder blades. And I'm like, why does that hurt all the time? Tension. And just like noticing if your breath is shallow, which a lot of the time it is. Like, when was the last time you just like let your belly expand and have like a big deep breath? That's like, yeah, step one. I love to like journal. That's a nice thing. Sometimes, whether or not it's like in a physical journal or like in your cell phone, like if you just have a thought, you can put it in your notes. It doesn't have to go anywhere or be anything. It's just like there. And like movement, but movement in a way that feels like deeply authentic to you, which something I learned from Josh Doig. One of the things that I always have taken with me from him is this thing called bedroom dancing, which is basically like you just put on a song that makes you happy, or like that makes you feel good, and you just move, just like flail your body around in like the silliest way, no structure, no judgment, like just, and it can be as small or as big as you want it to be. And that has like changed my life. And I would encourage everyone to try it, because it's literally saved my life so many times when I'm just like, especially during the pandemic, like just putting on music and like,
moving around.
Yeah. And you're like, no, it doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to look nice, because it's not for anyone or anything. Like, just flail. It like really honors your inner child, I feel like. And all of a sudden you're like smiling and laughing because you like can't believe how silly you're being, but that is like such a freeing, like chest opening
Like authentic.
thing. Yeah, things being hard does not mean they're like better or more valuable. Like
Yeah.
things don't always have to be so hard.
Well, and that's such a thing. Like, you have to suffer for your art. You have to struggle. The notion of the starving artist. But it's like, what if we didn't place our well-being below our productivity?
Yeah.
Which I think is something that the pandemic has kind of flipped on its head a little bit. It's like, so what do I do? What do I do with myself now? Because we're all, I think, in this community as artists and performers, we're so attached to our work, to our career, because it is so personal. Like it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's like, oh, wait, who am I without that? Which is where this segment came from. And learning how to honor and recognize and get to know who we are as a person. And
I think more and more, especially like why I have become so interested in like sort of like wellness and mindfulness, is for a long time, like I didn't really think that the like wellness or mindfulness world was something that I could participate in. Like it all just seemed like too hard, I guess, or like very restrictive, and just like inaccessible. And then I don't know, I guess in the pandemic I found like a couple of like movement Pilates teachers that are a part of this like new, maybe not new wave, but like more authentic wave of like wellness and mindfulness, and being like, let's talk about authenticity and like honoring body, and like let's talk about why we care for ourselves. And the fact that if you are a person who like cares about your community and wants to contribute, if you don't take care of yourself, then you can't. And how like caring for yourself and like making sure that you are prioritizing your own joy and your own wellness is and should be a part of your activism. And like if you don't have the energy to do anything, and if you are mentally and physically and emotionally drained and exhausted and like working at a deficit all the time, you can't effectively participate in the revolution. You can't. You just can't do it, and you cannot care for your community in the way that you would want to. And so I have recently like signed up for a like Pilates movement teacher training program, which is like really exciting.
I love Pilates.
Me too, but I also love the version of Pilates that has all of these like anti-oppression things in mind.
Wow.
So this movement school, I think it's like based in Hamilton, I want to say. They're called Good Body Feel, if you want to like look them up, because also they offer like really amazing classes.
We'll put their contact in. We'll put their contact in so you guys can all check it out.
But they have a program, and it's like all run by like queer femmes of color, and all of their movement and like their ethos is all based in like anti-oppression and making sure that classes and movement is coming from a place that is like informed about these things. And I don't know, I'm just like, that is super exciting, because once I have a little bit more knowledge about like the muscles in the body and like all of that stuff, then I can give back to like the BIPOC community that is always like struggling and suffering and not prioritizing themselves, because we're trying to teach people how to not murder us and stuff, and hate us for no reason. That like release movement helps release trauma and like gets you connected to yourself. I hope that more people of color are able to prioritize their own wellness and well-being, because oftentimes we don't. My therapist talks about like the muscles, and she's like, listen, you're, the muscle in you that is like hardworking and, cares about other people and like all of that stuff, she's overdeveloped. Okay. Like we don't have to, we don't need to work on her anymore. She's very strong, actually maybe a little too strong.
Yeah.
What we do need to work on is like maybe the version of you that like has to set more boundaries, or like, prioritizes joy, or like any of that stuff. And I'm like, would invite people to think about like what muscles in themselves are overdeveloped or maybe a little too strong. And maybe think about the ones that are weaker or not weaker, but just like less developed and have had less attention.
Oh, I love that.
And the other muscle, like it won't go away. Like if you are a person who really is always thinking about others and you start thinking about yourself, I think a lot of people, myself included, get very scared that all of a sudden you're just only going to be thinking about yourself. Not true, because that muscle again is still very strong.
I love that. And I hope that everyone writes that down. Take notes, people. This is a note-taking segment. I've just so loved chatting with you. We've talked about so much. And I really appreciate like the authenticity and the vulnerability of what you've talked to us about and your honesty and openness. Because I think that it's such a shared experience in a lot of ways, like the imposter syndrome and the self-talk and this need to be selfless and not knowing how to ask for help. Like, I mean, I'm feeling it anyway. So if nothing else, people, I'm benefiting from this, but I know I'm not alone. I'm very excited. So it's a visualization into a version of like a bedroom dance.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I will invite you now to close your eyes if that feels comfy. And maybe if you want to, you can place a hand on your heart and on your lower belly. And just start by checking in with yourself and ask yourself, where am I at and what do I need? I think a lot of the time we take for granted that we exist in our own bodies and we forget to really check in with ourselves and ask ourselves that question. I do all the time. Okay, so I invite you to like breathe deeply, feel your belly rise and fall. And I'd like you to visualize yourself lying on your back on a beautiful green hill. It's a beautiful sunny day, kind of like today. Some light clouds in the sky, but they aren't thick enough to block out any of the sunlight. You look to your left and then you look to your right. You're the only person on the hill. A light breeze blows gently, moving your hair and the blades of grass sway. The sunlight is so warm on your skin, and you look up at the vast blue sky and you feel so content. As you continue to be held by the warmth and breeze and calm and contentment, you feel light and then lighter, and then you feel so light that your body begins to lift off of the grass and you float up and away from the beeping car sound. And you float up into the gorgeous blue sky and you find that you can walk and you can run and jump and twirl. You're delighted that you are lucky, lucky you. You are getting to experience this magical moment. Oh, and we're just floating up and away from all of the city noise.
It's an authentic Toronto experience, everyone.
And you are so excited that you are getting to experience this magical moment on a perfect day. You take a big, long sip of air, and then you exhale, and then you begin to dance.
I've spent a lot of time looking out of hotel windows, seeing the trees concave.
Oh, dang.
Wind blows. I know the metro system inside out. Paris never changes. I know my way about.
Well, we're going to continue this dance. And Sierra Holder, Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody, I hope that you find a song and continue this bedroom dance after the show is over tonight. Get your way with it tomorrow. And be sure to check out Sierra on the Instagram. We've got Judy Gay down there, so we work with them. And this is her personal account. I'm going to continue this dance, and we're going to go into our next segment. Sierra, thank you so much. All the best with your future and wellness. You're going to take over the world, and I can't wait.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Bye.